War is politics by other means. These words by Karl von Clausewitz have never felt more relevant than today, as the conflict between Russia and Ukraine continues to escalate. On one side, we have Vladimir Putin, the long-serving president of Russia, determined to restore Russia's influence on the global stage. On the other, Volodymyr Zelensky, the comedian-turned-president of Ukraine, leading his nation in a battle for sovereignty and democracy. But why exactly is this conflict happening? What are the historical, political, and strategic reasons behind Putin's war on Zelensky's Ukraine? Welcome to Incognito History and Politics Oversimplified, where today we explore the origins, motives, and implications of this devastating war. To understand the conflict between Putin and Zelensky, we must first look back at the complex history of Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine was once part of the Soviet Union, a vast empire that disintegrated in 1991. The fall of the USSR was a turning point for Eastern Europe, as former Soviet states, including Ukraine, gained independence. But this newfound freedom didn't come without complications. Russia, under Boris Yeltsin and later Vladimir Putin, struggled with the loss of its empire and influence. For Putin, the collapse of the Soviet Union was a geopolitical catastrophe. He views Ukraine not just as a neighboring country, but as an integral part of Russia's historical and cultural identity. This belief underpins his foreign policy, driven by a desire to reclaim what he sees as Russia's rightful sphere of influence. Putin's rise to power in 1999 marked the beginning of a new era in Russian politics. His presidency was characterized by the centralization of power, the suppression of dissent, and an increasingly assertive foreign policy. For Ukraine, however, the path was different. The country's move towards democracy and its aspirations to join Western institutions like the European Union and NATO were seen as a direct threat by Putin. In 2004, the Orange Revolution saw Ukrainians rejecting a pro-Russian government in favor of a pro-Western leader. This was followed by the 2014 Maidan protests, which ousted another pro-Russian president, Viktor Yanukovych. For Putin, these uprisings were not just internal Ukrainian affairs, but were orchestrated by the West to encircle and weaken Russia. His response was swift and severe, annexing Crimea in 2014 and supporting separatist movements in eastern Ukraine, leading to a frozen conflict that has simmered for years. Fast forward to February 2022. Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, catching much of the world by surprise. But why did Putin take this drastic step? Several factors contributed to this decision. Firstly, NATO's eastward expansion has been a long-standing concern for Putin. Although Ukraine is not a NATO member, its growing ties with the West and the potential for future membership were seen as unacceptable. For Putin, this was a red line, a direct threat to Russia's security. Secondly, Putin's desire to reassert Russia's status as a global power cannot be overlooked. By invading Ukraine, he aims to send a clear message. Russia will not tolerate Western encroachment and is willing to use force to protect its interests. Lastly, Putin's vision of Russian identity plays a crucial role. He has repeatedly claimed that Russians and Ukrainians are one people, suggesting that Ukraine's sovereignty is illegitimate. By attacking Ukraine, he seeks to restore what he sees as the natural order, a Ukraine closely aligned with, if not directly controlled by Moscow. On the other side of this conflict stands Volodymyr Zelensky, a former comedian who was elected president in 2019. Zelensky's presidency initially focused on domestic reforms and anti-corruption efforts, but the Russian invasion thrust him into the role of a wartime leader. Despite overwhelming odds, Zelensky has inspired Ukrainians to resist Russian aggression, becoming a symbol of defiance and resilience. Ukraine's resistance has been bolstered by significant international support, particularly from NATO countries, which have provided weapons, intelligence, and financial aid. Zelensky's diplomatic efforts have also been crucial, securing sanctions against Russia and isolating Putin on the world stage. Yet the cost of this conflict has been enormous, with thousands of lives lost and millions displaced. The war in Ukraine has far-reaching implications beyond the battlefield. Economically, it has disrupted global supply chains, leading to energy crises and food shortages. Politically, it has reshaped alliances, with countries like Finland and Sweden seeking NATO membership, and China closely watching the West's response. the conflict also raises critical questions about the future of international order. Will the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity prevail, or will might make right in the 21st century? The outcome of this war will have lasting consequences for global stability, and it remains unclear how or when it will end. The war between Putin's Russia and Zelensky's Ukraine is a tragic and complex conflict rooted in history, ideology, and geopolitics. It is a battle not just for territory, but for the future direction of Europe and the world. As the fighting continues, the human cost rises, and the path to peace seems distant. But one thing is certain: this conflict will shape the future for years to come. It challenges us to think deeply about the principles we value: sovereignty, freedom, and justice, and how far we are willing to go to defend them. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Subscribe and stay tuned for more.